The Duke traded away the woman who saved his estate, then every farmer refused to pay him rent. Duke Andrew Thornton believed sending Mina Harper away would finally make his estate quiet again. He signed away 12 ancestral oak chairs and transferred her management contract to a southern silk merchant, telling himself distance would keep everyone safe. 3 days later, not one tenant paid rent. From the turnip fields to the dairy farms, the same message came back: without Mina, Thornton land had no heart, and no one intended to pretend otherwise. Andrew Thornton signed Mina Harper away on a Tuesday morning. The sentence sounded ugly even in his own mind, so he refused to think it that way. He called it a transfer of service. A contractual reassignment. A clean solution to a complicated problem. Anything but what it felt like when his pen touched the parchment. The Duke stood at the long oak table in the west study of Thornton Hall, one hand resting on the back of the chair he had used since he inherited the estate at 21. 12 chairs surrounded the table, each carved from dark English oak and brought to the family by his grandmother as part of her wedding settlement. They were heavy, inconvenient, and impossible to replace. Mina had carved into one anyway. Andrew's thumb passed over the shallow scratches on the chair back. The Turnip Duke's nightmare. The letters were crooked. The N leaned too far left. The finally looked as if it had been stabbed into the wood during a fit of laughter. He could still see her at 19, slipping into the study after the harvest ball with a silver hairpin in her fist and outrage in her eyes because he had called her plan to catch a suspected smuggler a childish spy game. She had found the smuggler before midnight. Then she had carved the insult into his chair while he was still explaining to 3 embarrassed magistrates how she had been right. Behind him, Mr. Ellis cleared his throat. Andrew's estate agent was 63, narrow-shouldered, and normally incapable of sounding nervous. Today every word emerged as though he had to push it past his teeth. Your Grace, I need to ask once more whether you understand exactly what you are signing. Andrew did not turn. I understand contracts, Ellis. I have never doubted it. Then stop speaking as though I am about to sell the North Tower to a traveling circus. Ellis looked down at the papers in his hands. The 12 chairs will pass to Mr. Silas Vale as collateral against the Southern Credit Line. Temporarily. If the harvest accounts recover by Michaelmas. They will. Ellis hesitated. And Miss Harper's estate management agreement will be assigned to Vale Mercantile for 1 year. Andrew's jaw tightened. There it was. Not Mina herself. Never Mina herself. She was a free woman. She had wages, savings, and the legal right to resign with 30 days' notice. The contract covered her work as a regional household and tenant liaison, a position she had somehow transformed from answering complaints into knowing the name of every widow, shepherd, miller, brewer, cow, and difficult child across 12 villages. But Silas Vale had insisted that if Thornton wanted emergency credit, he wanted more than furniture. He wanted the woman whose agricultural reforms had doubled root vegetable yields in the eastern fields. Vale owned textile mills, silk warehouses, dye houses, and 3 neglected southern estates. He had watched Mina turn exhausted land into profitable land and decided she could do the same for him. Mina had refused when he offered to hire her. So Vale made her employment agreement part of Andrew's refinancing package. Andrew had told himself that made the arrangement business. He had not told himself why he agreed. Ellis did it for him. She will hate you. Andrew finally turned. That is irrelevant. The old agent's eyebrows rose. Is it? Andrew's gaze hardened. 5 years earlier, 4 men had dragged him from a carriage road at gunpoint. They held him for 11 days in a stone barn near the coast. He had been 24, newly responsible for Thornton, arrogant enough to think his title made him difficult to touch. The kidnappers corrected that belief with ropes, darkness, hunger, and a pistol pressed against his teeth. They wanted access to a government grain contract. They wanted signatures. They wanted names. They wanted him frightened enough to obey. He did not. Mina helped find him. She was 18. She had followed wagon tracks everyone else dismissed, questioned a fish seller, stolen a stable ledger from a man twice her size, and ridden through a storm to Captain Rowan's patrol with evidence that led them to the barn. Andrew survived. His sleep did not. For years afterward, unexpected footsteps behind him could turn his blood cold. Locked doors made his lungs tighten. The smell of wet rope made his hands shake. Worst of all was the knowledge that Mina had nearly been caught while searching for him. One of the kidnappers later confessed they had noticed a red-haired girl asking questions. Andrew never forgot it. Mina did. Or pretended to. She continued chasing suspicious strangers, climbing roofs, questioning smugglers, organizing flood crews, and inserting herself into every crisis within 20 miles as if danger were merely another rude person to be argued with. Andrew had spent 5 years asking her to stop. Then ordering her to stop. Then pretending he did not care when she ignored him. Sending her south, to a guarded merchant estate hundreds of miles from the political trouble gathering around Thornton, had begun to look like mercy. That was the lie he needed. He signed. Ellis did not move. Andrew set down the pen. What? You did not ask whether she agreed. Her contract allows reassignment within the estate consortium. That is a legal answer. It is the only kind that matters on paper. Ellis's expression became very still. And off paper? Andrew looked again at the carved insult. Off paper, Mina would throw something at him. Probably a turnip. She had once done exactly that. Send the documents. Yes, Your Grace. Ellis gathered the parchment. At the door he stopped. For what it is worth, sir, quiet is not the same thing as peace. Andrew said nothing. The door closed. By afternoon, servants were wrapping the 12 oak chairs in blankets. Mina arrived before the 6th chair reached the wagon. Andrew knew she had heard because the front door slammed hard enough to shake dust from the portrait frames. Then came her footsteps. Fast. Unapologetic. Familiar. He stood at the study window with his back to the room. Andrew Thornton. Only Mina called him that when furious. He turned. She wore mud-splashed riding boots, a green wool coat, and her copper hair in a braid that had half escaped down her back. A smear of dirt crossed one cheek. She had probably been in the drainage fields. She held the reassignment notice in one hand. Tell me Ellis has developed a cruel sense of humor. He has not. Tell me Silas Vale forged your signature. He did not. Her eyes searched his face. You agreed to this? Yes. For once, Mina had no immediate answer. That frightened him. She looked toward the empty places around the table. The chairs too? Collateral. Your grandmother would climb out of the family crypt and beat you with one. She would need help lifting it. Mina stared. He regretted the joke instantly. Why? She asked. Thornton needs short-term credit. You have other assets. None Vale wanted at acceptable terms. So you offered my work instead. Your agreement permits reassignment. Stop saying that. Her voice sharpened. Andrew felt himself retreat into the only defense he trusted. Coldness. It is true. So was the fact that I could resign. With 30 days' notice. You remembered that clause. How touching. She tossed the notice onto his desk. Did you ever consider asking me? Andrew saw wet rope. Darkness. A kidnapper saying there had been a girl near the road. He said, no. Mina flinched. It was almost invisible. He wished she had shouted. Instead she nodded. All right. Mina dash. No. You answered. She turned toward the doorway. His control broke for 1 second. Dale's estate is safe. Mina stopped. There it was. He had said too much. She looked over her shoulder. Safe from what? Nothing. Andrew. He hated the concern in her voice. He hated that even now she heard fear beneath his anger. Go south, he said. Do the year. Dale will pay you double. Thornton's credit stabilizes. Everyone gets what they need. Mina stared at him for a long time. Everyone? He said nothing. Her expression softened in the way he could not bear. You still think sending people away is how you keep them? The words went directly into the oldest wound he had. Andrew's face closed. Your carriage leaves Thursday. Mina nodded. Then Thursday it is. She walked out. No shouting. No thrown turnip. Andrew would later wish she had broken every window in the house. Thursday morning, Mina left Thornton Hall in a Vale mercantile carriage. The 12 chairs had gone the day before. By Thursday evening, the West study looked larger. Andrew hated it. He told himself he preferred space. On Friday, he worked through tenant accounts until midnight. On Saturday, he rode the north boundary alone. On Sunday, he slept 4 hours without dreaming. On Monday, not one tenant paid rent. At first Andrew assumed a clerical mistake. By noon, Ellis stood in the study holding 3 empty collection bags. The East Farms refused. Andrew looked up from a council memorandum. All of them? All. Send different collectors. We did. Why are the bags empty? Ellis took a breath. Because old Thomas Miller stood in the road with a hoe and asked who taught them to rotate clover through the turnip plots last year. Andrew frowned. What? Then 6 tenants asked who organized the flood wall during the March storm. Then Mrs. Wren from the dairy asked who convinced the veterinary guild to send medicine without advance payment. Andrew's jaw tightened. And? The answer to every question was Mina. Rent is not a popularity contest. Old Thomas used almost those exact words. Good. He followed them with several others I will not repeat. Andrew stood. They are in breach of contract. Ellis folded his hands. They know. Then issue notices. To 12 villages? If necessary. The Millers have joined them. Andrew stopped. Which Millers? All 3. The dairy farms? Also refusing. Hop growers? They hung a banner. Andrew closed his eyes. What does it say? Ellis looked almost embarrassed. No Mina, no money. Andrew opened his eyes. Take it down. They put up 4. By sunset there were 9. One stretched across the bridge into Thornton Village. Another hung from the grain mill. Someone painted a turnip wearing a crown beneath the words. Andrew had it removed. The next morning 2 more appeared. He rode out personally. Old Thomas waited beside the eastern field with 40 tenants behind him. Thomas Miller was 70, sun-browned, and built like a fence post. He had planted turnips on Thornton land for more than 30 years. He removed his hat when Andrew approached. Your Grace. Thomas. Andrew looked at the crowd. You understand withholding rent violates your leases. Thomas put his hat back on. Aye. Then pay. No. Andrew had negotiated military supply contracts with ministers who commanded armies. He had faced kidnappers with a gun in his mouth. Somehow a 70-year-old farmer saying no made him more irritated than either. Why? Thomas pointed to the field. Last year that ground gave us half what it should. I know. Mina sat in the dirt with us for 3 days testing drainage. She is not an agronomist. No. She knows when to ask one. A few farmers laughed. Thomas continued. Brought Professor Hale from the county college. Convinced you to pay half for lime and clover seed. Yield doubled. Andrew remembered signing the expense request. He had not remembered why it existed. Thomas pointed toward the river. March storm broke the west bank. Mina was there before the steward. Andrew remembered that too. Mina returned to the hall at dawn soaked to the waist, laughing because a pig had followed the flood crew for 2 miles. He had yelled at her for risking herself. He had not asked how many farms she saved. A young woman stepped forward holding a baby. My husband broke his leg last winter. Miss Mina arranged 3 months' work in the dairy office so we didn't lose our cottage. Another man said, she got the school roof fixed. A miller called, she found who was cheating weights at the North Market. Someone shouted, she sat with my mother when she was dying. The voices multiplied. Andrew raised one hand. Silence slowly returned. Mina is an employee. Thomas's face hardened. That's your trouble. Andrew's temper sharpened. Explain. You think because her name sat under yours on a wage ledger, everything she did belonged to the estate. Andrew said nothing. Thomas stepped closer. Rent's what we pay for land. Loyalty's what we give people. You transferred the person and expected the loyalty to stay put. Andrew felt every eye on him. The estate has obligations. So do we. To your leases. To each other. Thomas pointed toward the road Mina's carriage had taken south. Bring her home. Andrew's voice went cold. She is not a parcel to be brought anywhere. Thomas stared at him. Then why'd you send her like one? The question left Andrew without a reply. He rode back to Thornton Hall alone. In the West study, the empty chair spaces looked like accusations. For the first time, Andrew opened the estate books not to find money but to find Mina. Her name appeared everywhere. Small notes. Approvals. Adjustments. Tenant Medical Fund, Mina Harper recommendation. Drainage trial, Mina Harper request. School roof timber, Mina Harper negotiated reduction. Dairy vaccination program, Mina Harper coordination. Widow pension review, Mina Harper. Hop blight response, Mina Harper. Emergency flood labor, Mina Harper. Andrew turned pages faster. He had signed most of the expenditures. He had considered them household details. She had built a social system underneath his financial one, and because it produced no grand speeches, he had failed to see its architecture. Ellis entered carrying tea. Andrew looked up. How much of this did you know? All of it. Why didn't you tell me? Ellis set down the tray. We did. Andrew stared. Miss Harper told you every week. Memories came back. Mina walking into his study with mud on her boots. Andrew, the South School needs slate. Andrew, Thomas's field drainage is wrong. Andrew, Mrs. Wren's dairy herd has fever. Andrew, if you make the millers pay the bridge toll twice they'll hide grain from your collectors out of spite. He had listened while reading other things. Approved what seemed reasonable. Dismissed what sounded inconvenient. Then congratulated himself when the estate improved. Andrew looked at Ellis. Why did Vale want her contract? I assumed you knew. Tell me. His southern estates are failing. Tenants leave. Mills lose workers. He thinks Miss Harper can repair labor relationships the way she repaired ours. She did not repair ours. Ellis glanced toward the empty rent bags stacked by the wall. No? Andrew's mouth tightened. That afternoon a letter arrived from Mina. It contained 6 words. Your chairs are unbearably self-important. Nothing else. Andrew read it twice. Then laughed. The sound surprised him. It was the first time the house had heard him laugh since she left. He wrote back. How is Vale treating you? Her reply arrived 4 days later. Like a woman who knows where his money leaks. Andrew frowned. He wrote again. Meaning? No answer came. At Vale's southern estate, Mina had spent her first week refusing to be impressed. Silas Vale met her at the marble entrance of Ashbourne House wearing a burgundy coat and the smile of a man who believed every object around him had a price. Miss Harper. Mr. Vale. His smile widened. You expected older? I expected less perfume. The footman behind him coughed into his fist. Silas laughed. Thornton warned me. About the perfume? About you. Did he warn you I resign badly? Your notice period is 30 days. I know my own contract. Then we understand each other. Not remotely. Mina entered the house. The 12 Thornton chairs had been placed around Vale's dining table. Seeing them there hurt more than she expected. Andrew's carved chair sat at the head. Her insult faced the wall. Mina moved it. Silas watched. Sentimental? Historically protective. Of furniture? Of evidence that the Duke of Thornton once lost an argument. Silas smiled. You are fond of him. Mina's face cooled. I am employed by you for the next 23 days unless I choose otherwise. My personal affections were not included in the transfer. Everything affects work. Then your work is about to become exhausting. It did. Mina visited Vale's dye houses first. Workers were paid late. Ventilation was poor. The river downstream ran purple twice a week because foremen dumped waste at night. Tenant farmers on Vale's estate paid higher rents than Thornton tenants but received no flood protection, seed loans, or veterinary assistance. Silas called them inefficient. Mina called them one bad winter away from revolt. You exaggerate, he said. I specialize in noticing people shortly before powerful men discover them. Thornton let you speak to him that way? No. I did it anyway. Silas stared. Then laughed. Now I understand why he sent you. The word stung. Mina refused to show it. No. You understand why he signed. Neither of us understands why he sent me. That night she lay awake in a guest room overlooking silk warehouses. She was furious with Andrew. More furious because she understood him. For 5 years, after the kidnapping, he had looked at danger and seen only the worst ending. Mina saw puzzles. Andrew saw graves. When she climbed a roof, he imagined her falling. When she questioned smugglers, he imagined a gun. When she rode out in storms, he imagined an empty saddle returning. He called it recklessness. She called it living. Neither had found a language the other trusted. But understanding fear did not excuse what he did. He had turned protection into control. That was why she had not resigned immediately. Not because she obeyed him. Because she wanted time to decide what she wanted when her life was no longer organized around making Andrew less afraid. On her 9th day at Ashbourne, Mina found the first suspicious ledger. A silk shipment listed twice. Once to London. Once to a private warehouse near the coast. Same bolts. Same dates. Different buyers. She checked 3 months. The pattern repeated. Mina's pulse quickened. 5 years earlier, Andrew's kidnappers had used textile wagons to move weapons and messages along the coast. One name in the old investigation surfaced in her memory. Vale Freight. She sat back. Silas Vale had inherited the company only 2 years earlier from an uncle. Maybe coincidence. Mina distrusted coincidences that appeared in ledgers. She sent Andrew the cryptic note about money leaking. Then she started asking questions. A warehouse clerk said certain night shipments bypassed customs. A dye worker mentioned armed men using a locked river building. A stable boy remembered carriages leaving without lamps. Mina wrote everything down. Then she caught Silas watching her from a balcony. That evening he joined her in the library. "You are investigating me." Mina looked up from an agricultural report. "You wanted an estate manager." "Estate managers do not question shipping manifests. Good ones question anything that costs money." Silas poured wine. "Do you know why Thornton really sent you?" Mina's hand stilled. He needed credit. He had other ways to get it. Worse rates, yes. But ways. She looked at him. Silas smiled. "I told him I was interested in you because my southern labor problems were becoming dangerous. He agreed faster when I mentioned my estate had private guards and no connection to court politics." Mina's stomach tightened. "What court politics?" "Ask your duke." "He is not my duke." That sentence sounds rehearsed. Mina closed the report. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I dislike being used as somebody else's locked box." "Yet you accepted the contract." "I am a businessman. Moral purity has terrible margins." Mina almost smiled. "At least you're honest about being awful." Silas raised his glass. "Occasionally." She did not drink with him. That night, Mina decided she would resign when the 30 days ended. She also decided she would not return to Thornton simply because Andrew regretted his decision. If she went back, it would be because he understood that safety without choice was another kind of cage. 3 days later, 2 of Andrew's rent collectors returned with not money but gifts. Turnips. Flour. Cheese. Milk. A bundle of hops. Andrew stared at the pile in the entrance hall. "What is this?" Ellis read from a note. "The tenants say they will provide food to the household because they have no quarrel with the servants. They will not provide coin to your grace until Miss Harper returns or writes that she left willingly." Andrew looked at the turnips. One had a face carved into it. He picked it up. "Is this supposed to be me?" Ellis examined it. "The eyebrows are convincing." Andrew threw it into a basket. Then picked it up again because wasting food felt childish. "How long can we operate without rent?" 4 months comfortably. 6 painfully. "And the Vale loan?" "Due at Michaelmas." Andrew swore. Ellis waited. "Say it." "I did not say anything." "Your silence has become insubordinate." "I learned from Miss Harper." Andrew almost smiled. Then a writer arrived from the capital. The message changed everything. Captain Rowan requested Andrew's immediate presence regarding a reopened investigation into the kidnapping network from 5 years earlier. A courier had been arrested carrying coded trade papers. One paper referenced Thornton grain routes. Another referenced Ashbourne. Andrew read the name twice. Mina. His lungs tightened. The room became too small. Wet rope. Dark barn. Red-haired girl asking questions. He stood so quickly the chair behind him fell. Ellis caught his arm. "Andrew." The use of his name cut through the memory. Andrew breathed. Once. Again. He looked at the letter. "Prepare a carriage." "For London?" "Ashbourne." The captain asked Dash. "Rowan can meet me there." Ellis did not argue. Andrew left before dawn. He rode most of the first day rather than sit in the carriage. The farther south he traveled, the angrier he became. At Vale. At himself. At Mina, irrationally, for being exactly the kind of person who would find danger inside a ledger after he sent her somewhere to avoid danger. By midnight his horse was exhausted. He changed mounts at an inn. The innkeeper recognized him. "Thornton?" Andrew nodded. The man grinned. "You're the turnip duke." Andrew closed his eyes. "Who told you that?" "Red-haired lady came through 3 weeks ago." "Of course. Did she say anything else?" "Said your estate grows the best turnips in England because fear makes you overmanage drainage." Andrew stared. The innkeeper shrugged. "Seemed fond of you." Andrew rode another hour before allowing himself to think about that. At Ashbourne House the next afternoon, Silas Vale received him in the garden. "That was fast. Where is Mina?" "Good afternoon to you too." Andrew stepped closer. Silas's amusement faded. "She is safe." Andrew's hands curled. Silas noticed. "Thornton." Andrew forced them open. "Where?" Silas pointed toward the rear gardens. Mina was kneeling beside a row of beans with 6 servants around her. She held a stick like a pistol. "The spy cannot use the front gate," she was saying. "Too obvious." "So where does he go?" A kitchen boy shouted, "The laundry tunnel." "Exactly. Never trust clean sheets." The servants laughed. Andrew stopped walking. For 3 weeks he had imagined her trapped, angry, endangered. She was teaching servants espionage between bean rows. Mina looked up. Her face went blank. "Andrew." The servants turned. One whispered, "Turnip Duke." Andrew heard it. Mina bit the inside of her cheek. "Not a word," he said. She stood. "You traveled 400 miles to police agricultural nicknames?" He wanted to embrace her. He wanted to shake her. He did neither. "We need to talk." Mina's expression changed. "About?" "Shipping ledgers." Now she understood. She dismissed the servants. Silas joined them. "I assume Captain Rowan found something." Andrew looked at him. "How do you know Rowan?" Silas sighed. "My uncle's company appeared in the original kidnapping investigation. He was never charged. I inherited the paperwork and the reputation." "You knew?" "I knew there were questions. I did not know somebody was still using the old routes." Mina crossed her arms. "I found duplicate silk shipments and a locked river warehouse." Andrew's heart hammered. "And you investigated?" "Obviously." "Mina. Do not start. The network that kidnapped me may be active here. Which is why information matters. Which is why you should leave." Her eyes flashed. "There. Again." Silas looked between them. "I am suddenly grateful to be unmarried." "Go away, Vale," they said together. Silas smiled. "Charming." He left. Andrew lowered his voice. "Come home." Mina stared. "No." He had expected anger. He had not expected refusal to feel like a physical blow. "The tenants are withholding rent." "I heard." "How?" "Thomas sends better letters than you." Mina. "They should pay their leases." Hope rose. She continued. "But I'm not coming back because they staged a rent rebellion." "Then why?" "I'm not coming back because you still think the question is why." Andrew stared. She stepped closer. "You signed my work away because you were afraid." His face tightened. "I was protecting you. From a danger you never told me existed." "You would have investigated." "Yes. Exactly. That is not permission to control me. Andrew looked away. Mina's voice softened. You were kidnapped. You were tortured. I know what it did to you. He flinched. She continued. But every time you're afraid now, you build a fence around somebody else. You could have been killed looking for me. I know. No, you don't. His voice broke. Mina went still. Andrew had never told her the worst part. He did now. One of them said they saw you. A girl asking about wagon tracks. They joked about what they would do if you came closer. I spent 2 nights tied to a post knowing you were somewhere outside asking questions, and I could not warn you. Mina's face changed. Andrew looked at the ground. When Rowan found me, I thought I would feel relief. Instead I looked at you and saw another person I could fail to keep alive. Silence. The garden moved around them. Bees in lavender. A fountain. A servant somewhere laughing. Mina stepped closer. Andrew. He did not look up. That explains it, she said. His eyes lifted. It does not excuse it. He closed them. I know. The words were almost inaudible. Mina waited. Andrew opened his eyes. I know. That was the beginning. Not forgiveness. Not romance. A beginning. Captain Rowan arrived that evening. The investigation moved quickly after Mina shared her ledger copies. The locked river warehouse contained not weapons but coded correspondence, forged government seals, and payment records linked to 3 men from the old kidnapping network. Silas was furious. They used my company. Mina raised an eyebrow. Your company has very poor internal controls. Do you ever stop being professionally insulting? Only at weddings and funerals. I doubt that. Andrew watched them argue and felt something uncomfortable. Jealousy. He nearly laughed at himself. After everything, jealousy seemed almost refreshingly ordinary. Rowan arrested the warehouse manager and 2 couriers. The documents showed the network had been tracking Andrew's estate because of renewed government grain contracts. Mina had never been their target. But she could have become one the moment she uncovered the ledgers. Andrew did not say I told you so. That mattered. Mina noticed. 2 days later, Andrew met Silas in the dining room. The 12 oak chairs surrounded them. I want the chairs back, Andrew said. Silas poured coffee. 3 times their collateral value. Andrew stared. That is robbery. That is commerce performed by someone you dislike. Double. Triple. 2.5. Silas smiled. Triple, and I release Miss Harper's assignment immediately. Andrew's face cooled. Her contract is not yours to ransom. Legally dash. Do not. Silas laughed. Now you dislike legal answers? Andrew deserved that. He set a bank draft on the table. Triple. Silas inspected it. You came prepared. I came ashamed. It is more expensive. Silas looked genuinely surprised. Then he signed the release. Andrew took the paper. She decides what she does next. Obviously. Andrew looked at him. Silas raised both hands. I am learning morality. Slowly. Poor margins. The chairs were loaded before sunset. Andrew found Mina near the back garden again. She sat on a low wall eating an apple. Dale released the agreement. She nodded. He told me. The chairs are coming home. Congratulations to your ancestors. Andrew almost smiled. I am returning tomorrow. Mina looked at the apple. All right. He waited. She looked up. What? Are you coming? Do you want me to? The old Andrew would have answered with need disguised as instruction. Thornton requires you. The tenants require you. The accounts require you. He forced himself to answer the actual question. Yes. Mina waited. I want you to come because the estate is worse without you. Her eyebrows rose. Poor start. Andrew exhaled. And because I am worse without you. She went still. He continued before courage disappeared. But if you stay here, or go to London, or take a ship to America and teach turnips espionage, I will not stop you. Mina smiled despite herself. Turnips are terrible agents. No discretion. Mina. Her smile faded into something gentler. I don't know yet. Andrew nodded. The answer hurt. He let it. All right. He turned to leave. Andrew. He looked back. Tell Thomas I'll write to him. The rent strike needs to end. Hope rose again. I will. That is not the same as me returning. I know. This time, he did. Mina wrote the letter that night. Thomas read it aloud in the village square 4 days later. Pay your rent, you dramatic vegetables. The land did not sign me away. Andrew did. I am dealing with Andrew. The crowd laughed. Thomas paid first. By evening the rent office had a line out the door. Some tenants paid in coin. One paid in cheese out of spite. Andrew accepted it. The estate stabilized. Mina did not return. Not immediately. She spent 6 weeks at Ashbourne after the investigation ended, helping Silas restructure tenant contracts. He paid her properly. She insisted on a new agreement with a clause prohibiting reassignment without consent. Then she made him add the same clause to every senior worker contract he used. You are vindictive, he said. Institutionally constructive. When her work was finished, she went to London. She stayed with a friend and took a temporary post advising an agricultural society. Andrew wrote once a week. Not every day. He learned restraint. His letters contained estate news. Thomas painted another turnip sign. I confiscated the paint. The school roof survived the storm. Mrs. Wren says the new calf is named after you. I objected. She ignored me. Ellis has begun sighing theatrically whenever I enter the study. Sometimes Mina answered. Sometimes she did not. Andrew did not send a carriage. He did not appear at her door. He did not ask mutual friends for reports. That restraint cost him more than the triple price of the chairs. It also changed him. He began visiting the farms himself. At first tenants treated him like a substitute teacher. Thomas made him inspect drainage ditches. Mrs. Wren made him hold a sick calf. A group of children asked why dukes were allowed to wear clean boots if everyone else had to work. Andrew had no answer. He stopped wearing clean boots. He discovered Mina's estate system was not magic. It was time. Hours of listening. Remembering names. Following small promises before they became large resentments. The work exhausted him. It also gave him a different relationship with Thornton. He had always believed he guarded the land. Mina understood that land was not simply soil and contracts. It was people agreeing to remain connected through bad harvests, illness, floods, births, debts, and mistakes. One evening Thomas handed Andrew a young turnip straight from the earth. She gave you one like that once. Andrew looked at him. How do you know? Everyone knows. Why does everyone know everything? Because Miss Mina talks. Andrew bit into the turnip. It tasted terrible raw. Thomas laughed. She told us you pretended to like it. I did not pretend. You're doing it now. Andrew threw the remaining half at him. Thomas caught it. Better. By late summer, the estate had recovered enough to repay Vale early. Andrew sent the final payment without satisfaction. He had learned that financial repair was easier than trust. Before Mina returned, Andrew made one trip to London that had nothing to do with contracts, grain, or fear. He went because Ellis told him he was becoming unbearable. I have always been unbearable, Andrew said. Yes, but usually with structure. This is more wandering. Andrew looked at the estate agent across the breakfast table. I do not wander. Yesterday you walked into the West study, stared at Miss Harper's chair for 7 minutes, and left without opening the letter in your hand. You timed me? The staff has become concerned. The staff needs work. The staff has work. You keep interrupting it. Andrew drank coffee. Ellis slid a card across the table. The name on it was Dr. Samuel Mercer, physician to former soldiers and victims of political violence. Andrew stared. No. I did not ask a question. Then remove it. Ellis did not. You were kidnapped 5 years ago. I remember. Do you? Andrew's eyes lifted. Ellis continued carefully. Because sometimes it seems the barn still makes decisions for you. The word struck harder than criticism from any tenant. Andrew stood. You have exceeded your position. Probably. You may leave. Certainly. Ellis reached the doorway. The appointment is Thursday at 2. I already paid the fee. Andrew stared at him. Ellis closed the door. Andrew attended only because he intended to demand a refund. Dr. Mercer did not give him one. The physician's office overlooked a narrow London square. No medical instruments were visible. No leather restraints. No locked cabinets. Andrew noticed those absences immediately and hated that he noticed them. Mercer was in his 50s, gray-haired, unimpressed by titles. Your agent says you were abducted. My agent talks too much. Were you? Yes. Do you sleep? Poorly. Locked doors? Andrew's jaw tightened. What about them? Do they bother you? Sometimes. Unexpected footsteps? Andrew said nothing. Mercer nodded. Smells? Wet rope. The answer escaped before Andrew decided to give it. Mercer leaned back. And what do you do when you feel afraid? I am not afraid. You came here because fear helped you transfer a woman you love hundreds of miles away without asking her. Andrew's head snapped up. Ellis told you that? No. You did. I did not say I love her. Mercer looked mildly bored. Then this will be a shorter appointment. Andrew almost laughed. Instead he sat for 50 minutes. He returned the next week. And the week after. Mercer never called the sessions treatment. Andrew appreciated that. They spoke about the barn, control, memory, and the difference between danger that existed now and danger his body expected because it once existed before. You keep trying to prevent the old event, Mercer told him. That is common. Unfortunately, time is stubborn. Andrew stared at the floor. If Mina had been caught She wasn't. But she could have been. Yes. Then how do I not think about it? You do think about it. You simply stop treating the thought as an order. Andrew hated how simple that sounded. The next time Mina wrote that she planned to travel alone from London to a farm conference in Kent, his first impulse was to send 2 guards. He drafted the instruction. Then remembered Mercer. A thought was not an order. Andrew burned the draft. He wrote instead. Travel safely. If you want Rowan to arrange an escort, say so. Mina's reply came 2 days later. Who are you and what have you done with Andrew Thornton? He smiled for nearly an hour. In London, Mina was changing too. Freedom did not feel as triumphant as she expected. For the first week, she enjoyed not having Andrew appear at the edge of every dangerous idea with a list of reasons it should be forbidden. Then she discovered she missed arguing with him. She missed the way his left eyebrow rose when he knew she was right but hated admitting it. She missed his habit of walking estate boundaries at dawn. She missed leaving a ridiculous note in his coat pocket and waiting to see whether he would pretend not to enjoy it. Missing him annoyed her. She complained about it to her friend Lydia Shaw, who had known her since school. You can love someone and still require better behavior, Lydia said. Mina frowned over tea. That sounds unpleasantly sensible. I have been waiting years to be accused of that. I thought leaving would make everything clear. Leaving makes distance. Clarity has to do its own work. Mina looked out the window. He is trying. Do you trust it? Some days. And others? I think he is being patient because he wants a reward. Lydia buttered toast. Maybe don't reward him, then. I am not a biscuit. Exactly. Mina laughed. At the Agricultural Society, she spent her days reviewing crop trials and arguing with men who believed women understood farms only if gardens contained roses. One committee member, Sir Malcolm Vane, interrupted her 3 times during a presentation on soil drainage. The 4th time, Mina stopped speaking. Have you finished? She asked. He blinked. I was clarifying. You were repeating my sentence with a deeper voice. The room went silent. Sir Malcolm reddened. Mina continued. If you would like to present my findings, I can sit down. But then you will need to explain why your proposed trench depth causes root rot in clay soil. He did not know. The chairman coughed into his hand. Mina finished her presentation. A week later, the society offered her a permanent advisory role. The salary was excellent. The position included travel. No estate. No Andrew. Mina sat with the offer letter until midnight. This was the choice she claimed she wanted. A life that belonged to her. She could take it. She could visit Thornton as a guest. She could love Andrew from far enough away that his fear never became architecture around her again. Or she could return and risk discovering that growth vanished once comfort returned. Mina wrote to him. I have been offered a permanent post in London. She did not explain further. Andrew's reply came by express courier the next morning. Congratulations. You earned it. That was all. Mina stared at the page. Then turned it over. Nothing on the back. No argument. No question. No demand that Thornton needed her more. She became irrationally angry. Lydia found her pacing. What happened? Mina thrust the letter at her. Lydia read it. He congratulated you. Exactly. Monster. Do not mock me. You wanted him to respect your choice. Yes. He did. Too easily. Lydia stared. Mina dropped into a chair. I hate personal growth. Everyone does when it works. Mina wrote nothing for 4 days. On the 5th she received another letter. Andrew wrote. I did not ask whether the London offer changes anything between us because I am practicing not turning your decisions into emergencies about me. I would still like you to come home. I am trying to understand that wanting is not authority. If London is what you choose, I will be proud of you from Thornton and complain privately to Ellis. Mina read it 3 times. Then cried hard enough to frighten Lydia's cat. She did not accept the London post immediately. Instead she asked for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, she went back through her own memories of Thornton. Not Andrew's version. Not the tenant's version. Hers. She remembered the first winter after her aunt died, when Andrew had quietly moved a writing desk into Mina's room because she complained the library closed too early. She remembered him sitting beside a sick farm child for 4 hours while Mina found a physician, though he later told everyone he had merely been nearby. She remembered the night after the kidnapping rescue when Andrew woke screaming and then apologized to the servant who came running, as if terror were bad manners. She remembered how often she had mocked his fear because humor made it easier than admitting she did not know how to help. Andrew had failed her. She had also sometimes failed to see him. That did not make the failures equal. It did make the future more complicated than a villain and a victim. Mina traveled to Thornton without telling him. Not to return. To observe. She arrived at dusk and stayed with Thomas's daughter in the village. The next morning she followed Andrew at a distance as he walked the eastern farms. He did not know she was there. That mattered. At the first cottage, he asked Mrs. Bell whether her roof still leaked. At the dairy, he remembered the vaccination schedule. At the school, he listened while the teacher complained for 12 full minutes about firewood. He did not look at his watch. Thomas made him inspect a ditch. Andrew climbed in. Mud reached his boots. Mina almost laughed aloud. Then a young tenant asked for rent relief because his wife had become ill. Andrew did not answer immediately. He asked questions. How long? What work could the man still do? Would reduced rent or delayed rent help more? Mina stood behind a hedge and felt something in her chest loosen. Andrew was not performing for her. He did not know she was watching. That was the evidence she needed. Thomas spotted her before noon. He looked toward the hedge. Mina raised one finger to her lips. Thomas grinned like a criminal. He said nothing. That evening, Mina walked to Thornton Hall alone. Andrew was in the west study. The 12 chairs had returned. Her carved chair stood nearest his desk rather than at the table. He looked up. For once, Andrew Thornton lost every word he had. Mina leaned against the doorframe. You let Thomas make you stand in a drainage ditch. Andrew blinked. How do you know that? I have sources. He stood slowly. Are you staying? I haven't decided. Hope and restraint fought openly across his face. Mina loved him for the restraint. I was offered London. I know. I might take it. I know. You are making this conversation annoyingly difficult. A smile touched his mouth. I have been advised that not every thought is an order. Mina stared. Advised by whom? Andrew looked uncomfortable. A physician. Her expression softened. You went to someone? Ellis ambushed me with an appointment. I will raise his salary. You do not control payroll. Not yet. Andrew laughed. The sound filled the study. Mina walked toward him. I don't need you to stop being afraid. His smile faded. Good, because progress is disappointing. I need you to stop making fear my job. Andrew nodded. I am trying. I saw. He understood then that she had watched him in the fields. Something like embarrassment crossed his face. Thomas knew. Thomas knows everything. I will evict him. No, you won't. No. Mina touched the carved chair. I'm going back to London for 2 weeks. Andrew's expression tightened but he said nothing. Then I'm coming home. He stopped breathing. Mina continued quickly. With conditions. Anything. Do not say anything before hearing them. Right. My employment contract becomes a partnership agreement. I keep independent income. I can accept outside advisory work. No reassignment clause. Ever. Agreed. I choose my travel. Andrew swallowed. Agreed. If you're frightened, you tell me you're frightened. You do not issue an order and call it concern. He nodded. Agreed. Mina looked at him. And the chair is mine. Andrew stared. You haven't even agreed to marry me. I am planning ahead. He laughed so hard he had to sit down. Mina smiled. That was when she knew she would return. Not because the estate needed her. Not because the tenants refused rent. Not because Andrew loved her. Because she had finally seen him changing when no reward was guaranteed. And because she had changed too. She no longer wanted to be needed so desperately that leaving became impossible. She wanted to be chosen by people who could survive her freedom. 2 weeks later, she packed her trunks. The London Society kept her as a seasonal advisor. Lydia hugged her at the station. If he becomes impossible again, I have a spare room. If he becomes impossible again, I have money. Even better. Mina boarded the coach north. For the first time in months, home did not feel like a place she was returning to because others demanded it. It felt like a decision. Mina returned on a September afternoon. No announcement. No carriage with ducal colors. She came in a hired coach with 2 trunks, a rolled set of maps, and a potted rosemary plant she claimed had sentimental value despite looking half dead. The gatekeeper saw her first. Within 10 minutes the entire village knew. Within 20, people began gathering at Thornton Hall. Mina stepped from the coach and stopped. The road beyond the gate was lined with tenants. Old Thomas held turnips in both hands. Mrs. Wren brought milk. The millers brought flour. The hop growers carried woven crowns. Children waved little paper spy flags. Mina stared. What is this? Thomas stepped forward. Rent. She looked at the food. This is not rent. Emotional rent. That phrase is nonsense. Learned it from the Duke. Mina's eyes widened. Andrew said emotional rent? Thomas grinned. No. But I wanted to see your face. The crowd laughed. Mina laughed too. Then her eyes filled. She looked around at the people she had once helped without thinking of it as anything grand. A roof. A calf. A widow. A drainage ditch. A schoolbook. A night at a flood wall. She had considered them problems solved. They had considered them proof she belonged. Andrew watched from the front steps. He had planned a speech. He forgot every word. Mina saw him. The crowd quieted. Andrew walked down carrying the carved oak chair. It was absurdly heavy. Ellis had offered 2 footmen. Andrew refused. By the time he reached Mina, his arms were shaking. She stared at the chair. The turnip duke's nightmare was still carved across the back. You should have accepted help, she said. I am making a symbolic gesture. You are damaging your spine. Please let me finish before medical commentary. Her mouth twitched. Andrew set the chair at her feet. Then, before the entire estate, he went down on one knee. Mina's expression vanished. Someone behind her gasped. Thomas whispered loudly, about time. Mina looked over her shoulder. Thomas. He shut his mouth. Andrew took a breath. I spent 5 years telling myself that loving you meant preventing every danger I could imagine. Mina went very still. It took losing the rent of 12 villages for me to understand I had become one of the dangers. A few people laughed softly. Andrew continued. I signed away your work because I thought fear gave me the right to choose safety for you. It did not. I am sorry. Mina's eyes filled. Andrew dash. Let me finish. I practiced. She covered her mouth. The crowd laughed. Andrew looked at the chair. This chair used to mean authority to me. Then you vandalized it. Improved it. Vandalized it. Continue. He smiled. Now it means the first time someone in this house refused to be impressed by me. He looked around at the tenants. The land is mine on paper. But paper is not the same as belonging. You taught me that too. Then he looked only at her. So I am not offering you my estate as if it is a prize. You already have your own work, your own money, and apparently the loyalty of every person I am legally entitled to charge rent. Thomas nodded solemnly. Mina laughed through tears. Andrew reached into his coat and took out a small ring. Simple gold. No giant stone. He had learned something. I am asking whether you would like to build a life with me. One where you can leave a room without me imagining I have lost you forever. One where I ask before I decide what is good for you. One where, if you chase spies, you at least tell Rowan before climbing roofs. Mina narrowed her eyes. That last clause sounds suspiciously controlling. Negotiable. Good. Andrew swallowed. Mina Harper, will you marry me? She looked at him. The whole estate seemed to hold its breath. Then she looked at the chair. Do I get the chair? Andrew blinked. What? If I marry you? The chair. Yes. Legally? A laugh broke through the crowd. Andrew closed his eyes. Yes. Legally. In writing? Mina. I'm cautious now. He laughed. In writing. She held out her hand. Andrew slid the ring onto her finger. The crowd erupted. Thomas threw a turnip into the air. It struck Ellis in the shoulder. Mrs. Wren cried. 3 children began chanting Spy Duchess until Mina threatened to assign them actual homework. Andrew stood. Mina touched the carved letters on the chair. You know this means I was right. About what? Your land needed me. Andrew looked at the crowd. Then at her. No. She raised an eyebrow. It needed someone to teach me that owning land and deserving loyalty were different things. Mina's expression softened. Better answer. Andrew leaned closer. I have been practicing. Clearly. They married in October. The ceremony took place in the village church rather than the cathedral Andrew's relatives preferred. Mina chose autumn flowers, plain food, and enough tables for tenant families to attend. Silas Vale came from the south wearing too much perfume. He gave them a silver serving bowl and an amended standard employment contract from his company. Clause 14 read. No employee agreement may be transferred without the employee's explicit written consent. Mina framed it. Andrew said it ruined the library. She hung it there anyway. The 12 oak chairs returned to the west study. All except one. Mina's carved chair sat at the head of the kitchen table. Why the kitchen? Andrew asked. Better information. He could not argue. Over the next years Thornton became famous for 3 things. Turnips. Unusually loyal tenants. And a duchess who occasionally disappeared from formal dinners because she had received a tip about smugglers, fraudulent grain weights, missing sheep, or children sneaking into orchards. Andrew still worried. He did not become a different man overnight. Sometimes Mina would announce she was riding out after dark and his entire body would remember the barn. The first time, he said, no. Mina looked at him. Andrew closed his eyes. Then tried again. I am afraid. That was harder. It was also better. Mina crossed the room and took his hand. I know. Rowan goes with you. I was going to ask him. And you return before midnight. I will try. That is not reassuring. It is honest. He sighed. Fine. She kissed him. Look at you. Emotional development. Leave before I revoke it. She laughed all the way down the corridor. Andrew stood listening. Years ago he had believed quiet would heal him. He now understood why Ellis had warned him. Quiet was not peace. Peace was hearing Mina's laughter in the hall and knowing he did not have to trap it inside the house to keep it in his life. It could leave. It could return. It could choose him again. That was the difference. Each autumn, when rents came due, old Thomas still arrived with coin in one pocket and a turnip in the other. He placed both on Andrew's desk. One for the land, he would say, tapping the money. Then he would hold up the turnip. One for humility. Andrew accepted both. After Thomas died at 81, his grandson continued the tradition. By then Mina and Andrew had 2 children, both of whom had learned to carve terrible messages into furniture when bored. Andrew blamed their mother. Mina blamed genetics. The original carved chair remained in the kitchen long after the gold leaf on the other 11 began to fade. Visitors sometimes asked why an ancestral ducal chair sat beside a flower bin with childish knife marks along the back. Mina always answered differently. Sometimes she said it was evidence from an old espionage case. Sometimes she said the Duke lost it in a wager. Once she told a visiting countess she had won it in single combat. Andrew nearly choked on soup. But when their daughter asked for the true story, Mina told it plainly. Your father was frightened and made a terrible decision. Andrew, reading nearby, looked up. Must we begin there? Yes. Their daughter grinned. Mina continued. He thought protecting someone meant choosing for them. Then the entire estate stopped paying him until he developed a personality. This version is becoming defamatory. And then, Mina said, ignoring him, he came south, paid 3 times what the chairs were worth, apologized properly, and learned to ask instead of order. Their daughter considered this. Did you forgive him because he was a duke? Mina looked at Andrew. Then back at the child. No. Because he bought the chairs? Definitely not. Then why? Mina smiled. Because after he was wrong, he did the work required to become safer to love. Andrew went very still. Mina reached across the table and took his hand. That was the story that remained. Not that a duke once traded away a woman and bought her back. Mina made sure nobody told it that way. She had never belonged to a contract, a merchant, an estate, or even Andrew. The truth was stranger and better. A frightened man tried to send away the person he loved because he mistook distance for safety. The land rebelled. The woman refused to return until choice was restored. And a duke who had spent his life believing authority could secure everything finally learned that the things worth keeping could not be secured at all. They could only be earned. Again and again. At the end of every harvest, Mina still walked the turnip fields. Andrew often joined her. One evening, years after the rent strike, she pulled a small turnip from the soil and held it out. Try it. Andrew stared. Raw? Tradition. It was terrible last time. Coward. He took a bite. It was still terrible. Mina laughed. Andrew laughed too. Across the fields, workers were loading carts beneath a gold autumn sky. Smoke rose from cottage chimneys. The mill wheel turned. Somewhere near the dairy, a child shouted that a calf had escaped. The estate was loud. Complicated. Alive. Andrew looked at Mina. Once, he had signed a contract because he thought silence would save him. Now he knew better. He handed the half-eaten turnip back to her. "You guard the land," he said. Mina tucked her arm through his. "And you?" Andrew looked toward the house, where the kitchen chair with her crooked carving waited beneath warm lamplight. "I guard nothing you haven't asked me to." Mina smiled. "Excellent answer, Your Grace. I've had years of practice." They walked home together as evening settled over Thornton. And behind them, in fields that had once refused to pay a single coin without Mina's blessing, the best turnips in the county kept growing.